Hey guys! So today I'm going to read another Cinderella book to you. I have to do it kind of fast because it's really long and YouTube cuts me off. It's called The Irish Cinderlad, and it is a Cinderella story from Ireland. And if you think back to our last day of school before we came home for a while, we learned about Ireland, and I showed you pictures of Ireland. It's a country far away. They do St. Patrick's Day, so we talked about Ireland. This is The Irish Cinderlad. And we're going to say thank you to HarperCollins Kids Books for letting us read this book today. In Ireland in the old times, there lived a lad named Beacon. His mother gave him this name for the day he was born because Beacon is Irish for little one. "It's fitting," she said, "for such a wee little thing." His mother loved him all the same and carried Beacon about in her egg basket for safekeeping. Whenever he opened his mouth, she spooned milk porridge into it, and Beacon began to grow. Red hair flamed on his head. His skinny legs got rounder, and his tiny feet got longer until his toes poked out of the basket. Although the rest of him stayed small, his feet kept on growing. By the time Beacon was 13 years old, they were so large he'd splash a puddle dry just by stepping in it. Still, Beacon's worries were few enough until his mother died. His father was a peddler and was often away, selling needles and pins and bringing back whatever was needed. To Beacon's surprise, one evening he came home with a new wife and 3 nearly grown daughters. "Now you've a mom again and 3 big sisters besides to watch out for you," his father explained. Watch they did. All 3 sisters spied on him. And if anything went wrong, they shrieked, "Blame little Bigfoot," for that's what they called him. We'd be better off without that good-for-nothing boy," said their mother. At last she told Beacon, "Your big feet are always in the way. It's time you went off to tend to the cows, so go take care of the cows." "Cows are fine company," Beacon replied, "but I've heard talk of a mean speckled bull. A kick from him can send a man sailing over the rainbow." "Stop worrying," snapped his stepmother. "Not even a cow could mistake you for a man." That's not nice. So Beacon became a herd boy taking care of the cows. Each day at sun up, he led his father's 3 cows up the hill to graze on purple clover. At sundown, he brought them home again. In between, he sat under an oak tree and kept a sharp eye out for the speckled bull. One misty morning, Beacon heard a bellow louder than a thunderclap. Rocks rattled down the hill, cows galloped about in circles, and Beacon scampered up the oak tree. When he dared to look, it was right into the angry eyes of an enormous bull. The creature's face was white, but splashed with rusty red like the freckles on Beacon's nose. The hooves were big and broad like Beacon's feet. He twitched his long tail and pawed the ground, ready to knock down the tree, and the boy with it. Quickly, Beacon stretched out his hand and scratched the bull behind the ear, in the place that cows like best. "We could be cousins, you and I," said Beacon, jumping down, "because we look to be patched together from the same odds and ends." So he says they look a lot alike. The bull lowered his head with the wicked curved horns, but instead of tossing Beacon, he nuzzled his cheek. He kind of snuggled him. From that moment, the bull and the boy were fast friends. Beacon told of his troubles while the bull listened. "The sisters tattle," said Beacon one day. "The stepmother scolds. I'm fed only scraps and will soon shrink down to nothing." "Not while I'm about," rumbled the bull. "Look into my left ear and pull out what you find there." Beacon wasn't surprised to hear the bull talk, for he had begun to suspect that his friend was no ordinary animal. Seeing something white poking from the animal's ear, Beacon pulled on it. Out came a tablecloth, and wrapped inside it was a whole meal. There was bread and cheese and sausage, boiled turnips, a pie, and oaten cake sticky with honey. "Eat what you will," said the speckled bull. Beacon ate every crumb and licked his fingers clean. Then he rolled up the cloth and tucked it back into the bull's ear. Each day, Beacon had a noontime meal fit for a king. Each day he turned down the crust of his bread his stepmother set out for his supper, so he didn't eat the food his stepmom gave him. That boy's filling his stomach somehow, the woman told her oldest daughter. Tomorrow, go up to the pasture and find out how. The girl did just that, hiding behind a bush to watch Beacon while he watched the cows. At noon, the speckled bull arrived. She saw Beacon pat him, put a hand to his ear, and pull out a feast. The bull is feeding Beacon, she told her mother that night. I saw it. Then we shall butcher that old speckled bull, declared the mother. He'll make a great stew for us. Eyes closed, Beacon nodded on the hearth, but his eyes were open, and he heard every word that was said. At the first light of day, he ran to warn the bull. The bull snorted. I'll not end up in a soup pot. Get on my back, lad, and we'll soon be gone from here. With Beacon holding tight to his horns, the bull trotted up the hill, over a steep mountain, and through a wood of beech trees. In a meadow, many days from home, the bull stopped. Here we bid goodbye, he said, for it is here that the gray bull and I must fight. No! Beacon threw his arms around the bull's neck. The gray bull shall kill me, for my fate has been told. When I'm dead, you are to twist off my tail. Beacon stared at him in horror. Never! Wear my tail as a belt. Use it when you need my help the most. Early the next morning, a bull, gray as the sky overhead, came charging through the trees. The two bulls locked horns and fought throughout the day. When evening came, the gray bull disappeared and the speckled bull lay dead. Beacon sat beside his friend all night. At dawn, remembering the bull's words, he carefully twisted his tail. It spun around in a full circle and came off at once. Beacon wrapped the tail twice about his waist and then, for the last time, reached into the animal's ear. He pulled out the tablecloth, now bare of food and fresh as new, and carefully covered the bull. Shh, he whispered to the bull. Alone, Beacon continued his journey, walking down a rocky ridge into a little valley. The stones cut his bare feet, and he was grateful when a gentleman on horseback offered him a ride. Where are you bound, lad? The man asked. Beacon shrugged. I'm not going anywhere at all. You could come along with me, the gentleman suggested. I'm in want of a cowherd. Herding is what I do best, answered Beacon. I've this horse, 4 cows, 3 sheep, and a donkey, and all of them are good-natured. What's bad is on the other side of the wall. An aarhawk, which I think is Irish for giant. A giant, Beacon exclaimed. I'd like to see one. Be careful, the gentleman wagged his finger. My last herd boy, he was far bigger and stronger than you. Although he knew quite well what was meant, Beacon said at once, I'll have the job anyway if it pleases you. Beacon became a herder again, sleeping in a cowshed by night and taking the horse, the cows, the sheep, and the donkey out to graze by day. When they had chomped and chewed up everything in the gentleman's field, Beacon climbed the stone wall to see what grew on the other side. Before him spread acres of grassy meadows and orchards of apple trees with fruit. Beacon knocked stones from the wall until it was low enough for the animals to step over. Help yourselves, he told them. That aarhawk has so much, he won't mind sharing. Then Beacon climbed a tree to pick an apple for himself. Got you, a voice bellowed. A sword slashed through the tree, chopping limbs into kindling and sending Beacon tumbling to the ground. Hardly a bite on your bones, a huge and hideous giant poked Beacon with his sword, but a bite is better than nothing. So he's saying, you're so little, you're just a bite, but it's better than nothing. Beacon's teeth began to chatter. The rest of him was too frightened to move. Then he remembered the speckled bull's last words. He pulled off his belt and flung it at the giant, as if it were alive. The bull's tail coiled like a snake about the giant's neck. The giant dropped his sword. Call it off, he croaked. No, vowed Beacon, I will not. Not, his eyes fell on the giant's shiny boots, until you give me those boots. Now be gone and never come back, Beacon commanded. He climbed up on the donkey, caught hold of the bull's tail, and yanked it like a bell pull. Promise? The giant's face turned purple. Promise, he puffed. As soon as Beacon let go, the belt unwound. With a fearsome howl, the Arhawk bounded over the wall and disappeared. Beacon buckled on the giant's huge boots. Just my size, he said. Then, waving the sword, he led the herd home. So look how much bigger the giant is than Beacon, but his huge boots are the same size as Beacon's feet. Remember we talked about how big his feet were? Did you think that that big, huge giant would end up being scared of little tiny Beacon? I didn't. I'm going to stop right here and do a second part of a video so that we make sure we get it all, okay? So I'm going to stop here, and then you can start the second part of the Irish Cinderlad.